Ooh, it's getting cold. Hey guys, what's up? It is the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to talk about another album that I really love, and it's from this year, and it is Liturgy with HAQQ. So, Liturgy is a black metal band from the USA, and they have gotten a lot of hate from the very uh, traditional black metal purists because they incorporate orchestral instrumentals, they incorporate glitch and electronics, they incorporate a little bit of hip hop even. So yeah, for a lot of the black metal purists, they are kind of hating on Liturgy. But in my opinion, Liturgy is one of the sharpest, freshest, and most unique black metal bands. And hey, metal bands of our generation at this very moment. And hey, they just came out with a masterpiece. So, Liturgy is fronted by Hunt-Hendrix, which sounds like an anime character, but he's real. And Liturgy has dropped a few albums already. Last time they dropped the artwork, which isn't great. I like the album cover, but it isn't a great album because it's a little in shambles. It's a little here and there. They have a lot of great, brilliant ideas, but they didn't really put it too nicely. And before that, we have Aesthetica, which I have actually covered in one of my mini album reviews, saying that it is an awesome black metal album. Tracks like Returner and Generation are my favorite. I mean, the track Generation is just a blast of shrill, sharp guitars. Even though it's one note being played over and over and over again with different tempos and rhythms, it's still a fiery, blazy, inflamed, furious banger of a black metal track. It's awesome. And what's really special about Liturgy is that if you look at the album cover and if you look at Hunt-Hendrix's social media, you'd realize that they're not only just a musical band for the music. They actually dabble into theology and philosophy. And yes, it does seem a little pretentious, I know, but I mean, this guy Hunter Hendrix here, he's serious, and if you have listened to this album, the intensity and the level of detail and transcendence that this album gives, I mean, they're serious. They're not kidding. So on the cover here, you would see four main terms: axiology, metaphysics, cosmogony, and eschatology, and these are the four main fields of theology, I think. And for axiology, it is a study of value, of worth, also the study of ethics and aesthetics. Thus, I assume that that is the origins of the name Aesthetica. And then we have metaphysics, which is the most interesting one, in my opinion. Also, at the same time, the most mind-boggling one, because this is a study of like the vaguest and the most abstract of things, like what is there, who am I, what is, uh, things like that, and it's kind of mind-boggling. Of course, we have cosmogony, which is the study of how everything started, the history and why. And then we have eschatology, which is basically the opposite. How will everything end? What is the destiny for humankind? So yeah, we even get some funny words on this album cover as well, like oyoyon, or is it pronounced oyoyon or oyoyon? I don't know. But HAQQ actually stands for Halligan above quality and quantity. So on this album, obviously, it's way above quantity because there aren't that many tracks here, and each track is pretty big with 3 other interludes, 4 if you include the outro. This has to be the most focused, fiery, and transcendent black metal album I've heard in a long time, if not ever, and definitely the most mature work that Liturgy has ever put out. The percussions here, they are very fluid. They are these burst beats that actually, instead of, just blasting violently and angrily, they actually build a bed for for momentum building, for crescendo building. The guitars on this album, they are epic, they are soaring, they're cinematic, and most importantly, they are transcendental. They just keep rising up and rising up and rising up to a point of being beyond humanity. And of course, not only do we get some very post-metal, post-rock-ish cinematic build-ups, but also we get some technicality as well with these sharp guitars and shrill bass scratching and screeching. And also for this album, there are many instrumentations being involved here. We have harps, glockenspiel, strings, and so much more. It's truly versatile and intense. The album starts off with HAJJ, which I don't know what does it stand for. Halligan above something, or maybe it's just like the title track, but like little tweaked. But yeah, it is a very grand and epic opener for the album. All the instrumentations just explode after some swirling electronic glitches, and it's incredibly cinematic. We get some dizzying drums, we get some screams and growls, which usually for metal music, I love the growls, very raw and natural and gruff and organic, but the screams here, they are inhuman. They are animalistic, but not in a rough way, but in a way it's ghoulish, it's windy, it's almost drony in a sense, and it's very sterile and clean, which usually it's not the kind of scream that I like, but actually for Liturgy, for the very transcendental guitar riffs, it actually works really, really well. Of course, we get some mathematic passages after the first couple of minutes of the first track. We also get these layers of squealing recorders. Yes, recorders, just blasting extremely hard. And we also get these moans and woos. There are actually vocals on the album, another layer of vocals. Ooh. Yeah, I know it sounds kind of weird, but it actually works really well. And when the recorders, the very ghoulish, ghostly woes sort of come together with the guitar riffs and the bells, it's just friggin' awesome. The sharp scratches on this track and many other tracks on the album are amazing, and towards the end of the track, it's basically like metal opera we're listening to, except it's washed and drowned in such intensity and aim for the sky and for like knowledge of the outer senses. I don't know. But yeah, it's great. And immediately afterwards, we get Exaco 1 out of 3 Exaco interludes. And for this piece, it is an odd piano interlude where we only hear pianos. And it starts off really oddly with some strange progressions, but later on, there are 2 distinct layers of pianos, one being underneath, sort of creating a bed of, or a sea of just worried guitars. And then on top of it, we get some pianos that really stand out because they hit harder and they sort of hop higher and higher and higher. And together on, they are amazing, and it's very busy. It's very fast. It never stops. It's so busy and it glitches. It's so busy to a point it almost loses its sense of being, and I just really love that. It's like there's no time for break or for rest. And then afterwards we have the track Virginity. Anyway, Virginity is a great track. This is one of the loneliest and coldest black metal tracks I've heard in a while. It's very tragic, okay? At first, we get some cascading harps, which are beautiful. Because of the harps, there's almost an angelic quality to the track. And then with the harps, it sort of leads very smoothly into these pummeling guitar riffs that are just downtrodden, that are just tragic. Again, we get some throaty, very dried up, very windy, ghostly growls and screams on the track, and the vocals and the guitars, they go together hand in hand on this track. And even though this track isn't really too long, it's about 4 minutes long, the climb towards the end, the crescendo, it is breathtaking. Basically, the vocals, they go higher, they become more epic, they become more ambitious, and then the guitars, they do that, and then the vocals do that, and then the guitars do that, and then they combine together and explode. Yes, it's very intense. And then afterwards, we have the track Pasaqalia, which is, I think, an even better track, because it starts off with some nice glockenspiels and maybe some strings that are just very dramatic and tense and epic. It's like I'm watching an action movie, except it is very much dipped in something philosophical. And then we get the guitar riffs on this track, which are head banging. We also get some very dreary strings, and this is very much needed after such intense build-up. Just some rhythm, some grooves, and it's fantastic. And afterwards, for the rest of the track, it's basically this thunderous, pummeling riff fest. And I also really love the stuttery flow of the track, just bam, bap, bam, bap. There's just a sense of just fear and uncertainty, which is hiding underneath this track. And then afterwards, Exaco 2, the second interlude, which is this very haunting bell interlude. The bells on this track, they are very ghoulish, but what's even more ghoulish are the vocal samples towards the end of the track. We also get some bits of pianos towards the end, which sours the tone of the interlude, which is really nice. Even though it's not that eventful in comparison to like other tracks on the album, it's still a pretty nice palate cleanser for what comes next, which is God of Love, which I think is one of the best black metal songs I've ever heard. Well, at least in a while. This is one of the most powerful things I've heard in the year. Usually for metal music, it's scary, freakish, nightmarish, and angry and violent as well. But for tracks like this, we really ascend to heaven. As the guitars and the drums build up, they just get more and more transcendental, more and more upwards. It goes upwards instead of downwards, and there's this very beautiful, positive light around these riffs and drums that just makes it super powerful. Anyway, it starts off with these very, very gorgeous strings, just luscious. It's like we're watching a very beautiful ending scene of like a TV show, mixed with like a very beautiful wedding that is something special. It's like I'm witnessing the end of humanity, but instead of panicking, I realize that yeah, we should accept our fate and just leave existence. Everything's gonna be fine. This is what this track sounds like. All the instrumentals on this track, they're firing at full force, blasting. And we also get these harps and guitars, which are amazing. And of course, it's post-metal-ish, so it's very cinematic. It gets very beautiful and luscious and gorgeous, but occasionally it stops and we get these scratches and pauses. The guitars, they are shrill, they are sharp, and they go something like this track builds momentum really well, and it has an amazing structure. Of course, for a track this long and this large, it is pretty multifaceted, and it is great at that. Afterwards, we have Exaco 3, which is very much needed after this much intensity. And Exaco 3 is this very spacey interlude with some fluttery pianos, which are very haunting and chilling, as well as loose, very loose, but it does create this really nice ambience to it. And then the train goes on with the title track, which starts out with some really stiff, almost meaty piano keys that are very cold and lonesome. But it builds up to probably the nastiest and the most monstrous moment on the entire album. This track focuses even more on the guitars and the drums as well as the screams instead of other instrumentations, even though they're hanging in the back very nicely. Of course, this track is monstrous. It is incredibly epic, and it really ascends. It goes up, but it doesn't have the positive, gorgeous light that God of Love has, but more just nightmarish. And again, it reaches such an extreme point. It glitches out. It just sort of scratches, and it has these guitar riffs locked in loops just going over and over and over and over again until it implodes, and it's just such a thrill of an ending. But actually, it isn't the ending. The album actually ends off with dot, 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 with spaces in between each dots. And it is sort of the outro track here, kind of long, over 4 minutes long. It's an ambient outro, and it starts off with some really curious bells and pianos, but really a bulk of the track is this muffled guitars, which gets more and more distorted as time goes by. It gets shoegazy and kind of drony. It doesn't sound bad at all, but not the best ending. Not that I want the track to explode even more, but actually the album would be totally fine if it just ends off at the title track. That way I would probably give this album a 10 out of 10, maybe. But still, this album is close. It's very close to a 10 out of 10. It is one of my favorite metal albums of the decade. I guess, I don't know if I like this one better or the Altar of Plagues album better or Ghost's album better, Meliora. That's a great album as well, but Meliora is way more accessible and catchy, while Teethed Glory and Injury is way more clanky, noisy, avant-garde, deranged album. But this one is more focused, almost too sane for its own good. Yeah, favorite track here is God of Love, and my least favorite here is the album ending. I am giving Liturgy's HAQQ a 9 out of 10. So, have you listened to Liturgy's HAQQ? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more. Thanks for watching. Also, I don't know if any more albums will join the top 10 this year. So far, I guess this album, Igor and Richard Dawson's 2020 are in my top 3.